Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and berries, here we are live and in person at, where are we?
Your Authentic Reflection Studios in New Hope,
I don't know where I am anymore.
right off of 42nd Avenue.
How far is 169 from that side?
169 is about,
It's pretty
I would
close,
say,
right?
about three-quarters of a mile. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. And 100, the opposite direction, is about half a mile.
Easy access between Highway 100 and 169 on 42nd.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right
got
across the
that?
street from the YMCA.
YMCA. Never could spell very good. I got the YMCA dyslexia. So we're going to talk about magic again today, just because magic keeps things open. It's a magical world. You know, the serendipities, you have those once in a while?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
See, I have them a lot too. So to me, what serendipities are like coincidences, right?
Yep. They're odd coincidences, though. There's always those coincidences that happen that are hyper common. Of course, it depends on whether you believe in coincidences. Some people don't believe in coincidences.
Well, they say
Some people,
they say there's no such thing as a coincidence, and I hyphenate it
yeah,
as coincidence.
yeah,
So it's two things happening. I got a theory about that too. That you have these coincidences, little quinky dink, these serendipity, weird things that happen, and that happens because there's a finite amount of molecules in the universe. This is deep. We're getting into deep magic right away. There's a finite amount of molecules in the universe, and there's an infinite amount of time. So the probability of those molecules realigning, eventually it's got to happen.
right.
In theory.
Yeah, there's like
So
the
that's a
hamburger in the box
coincidence.
theory too,
Yeah,
or apple in a box theory.
Yeah, so that's a coincidence because those two incidences are happening, and you have this multiple incidences happening. That's getting more and more to that focal point. So I've had this situation where I'm typing on my computer, listening to my earphones, and I'll type in the word like automobile, and I'll hear it. And then Monica will be saying something to somebody else. It'll happen like three things will be that word automobile all at the same time. So that means, in my mind, keep your focus on automobile for some reason, because something's going to happen. Like an accident at an automobile dealership, or
something.
Maybe it's automatically being mobile, something like that. So that's what I think. Quinky dinks and serendipities, and
Interesting.
I believe in coincidences.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I don't believe in coincidences as far as random events that are coinciding. I think that everything is kind of related in a lot of ways. But yeah, so to your point earlier, so the whole apple in a box theory, basically, if you were to take a box where no molecules were able to escape or enter, and it was a complete vacuum of a box, and the only thing you put in there was an apple, that apple eventually breaks down, right? Starts to break down, and it turns to dust, and you have an infinite amount of time, and that's one of the qualifications for it. Well, if you wait, eventually the molecules in there will start to rearrange themselves in all kinds of different ways. And if you've had an infinite amount of time, it may even take trillions of years. However, eventually it will rearrange itself to be an apple once again at some point.
Yeah, just like a six-sided die, eventually you're going to roll one again.
Right.
It's only got six molecules, though.
Right.
So I believe in that kind of thing. And I just think it's important to stay aware of it. But Monica created a thing called the synchronicity experience when we lived in Asheville, North Carolina. And we would just set an intention, what we wanted to have happen, what we're going to be conscious of, and then walk around. And we'd look for things that are synchronistically artistically involved. And there was a
Nice.
situation because Monica, she was a teacher at the University of Minnesota. She loves Paris. She really enjoys going to coffee shops and having a latte.
Mhm.
And I think those are the three things. And we walk into the store, and I go, Monica, look at that card. And she's looking at it. I go, look at the coincidences with that, the serendipity with that, the synchronicity. And she goes, what? I don't get it. And the card was an owl
Mhm.
with the cap on,
Mhm.
and it was a tower, the Eiffel Tower in the
Mhm.
thing, and the owl was having a latte. But she didn't see it. She didn't see the coincidence right there.
So is the owl a Minnesota thing? Or is that
No, the owl was a scholar. You know, the owl was supposed to be
Oh,
wise.
the scholar. Okay, got it. All right, I didn't know how it tied into the U of M.
Was the wise old owl, and then wearing
Got
the graduation cap. The
Got
owl was
it,
wearing
got
a
it.
cap in Paris with a latte.
Yeah,
So that's Monica right there.
nice.
So just being aware of all those coincidences that are happening, the characteristics and things with
Yeah.
different stuff. And
That's
I think
cool.
there's a lot to that, like the word peak.
Mhm.
Your last name is Peak.
Yep.
So sometimes I call this Peak Studios because it's you and Elizabeth Peak. And you're doing this stuff with this microdosing thing, and
Yep.
that's about states. So there's a thing called like peak state
Yep.
when you're at that certain place, that zone in athletics and stuff.
Yep.
So there's something there. We don't know what it is, but it's good to pay attention to it. So
That's right.
You never know what might happen.
Yep.
And I do a lot of that. There was a situation, this was before I met Monica, and I was listening to the radio, and Eric Clapton, If I Could Change the World,
Mhm.
If You Could Be My Queen, I Would Be Your King,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff in there. And I was going through this thing where I wanted to change the planet, make things a better place. And I was also looking for a woman. I drove past this car, good looking girl in this like SUV kind of car.
Mhm.
She ends up getting in front of me, and I see the license plate. And I was on my way to Lake Harriet Spiritual Community, which
Mhm.
is down on Upton, sort of by Lake Calhoun or Lake Harriet. So I end up following this car, this SUV, and the license on it was QQKK something. Queen, Queen, King, King. Numbers.
That's funny.
And I'm listening to that song, and I'm thinking, she's going to Lake Harriet. I can just tell. But she wasn't. She turned off. Unless she turned off, and then I went in, and maybe she arrived later or something. And
Yeah.
came back. Maybe she was in that same room. That's a high possibility that something might be going on there when I'm, getting teary to that song and want to change the world. And this king, you've been a queen.
That's funny.
You never know.
No.
I haven't asked.
No, you don't.
Maybe if Monica was driving that SUV, I don't know.
There you go. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, interesting stuff like that happens all the time. It's quite funny. And I was talking to actually my girls about deja vu the other day.
Yes.
Yeah, we were I was driving the girls to school, and all of a sudden Charlotte goes, "Oh, that's weird." And I said, "What?" And she goes, "I think we've totally done this before." And I said, "Yeah, I drive you to school every week because they're homeschooled, so they only go on Mondays, right?" So I'm like, "Yeah, I drive you every single week." And she goes, "That's not what I mean." she's 8 for the audience out there, and she goes, "No, it's just. Have you ever had one of those moments where you just feel like everything has happened before, and and you're just remembering something that's happened before?" And I was like, yeah, that's called deja vu. And she goes, "Yeah, that's what I'm having right now. We've even had this conversation before."
Right. Wasn't that the thing in the Matrix when the cat was walking by and then the cat walked by again and had the little glitch? It was like a little mini. Remember that?
Yeah, he said, "Whoa, deja vu."
Yeah.
And then he said, "Excuse me, say that again." He goes, "Deja vu." And then he goes, "Oh, that's whenever they change something in the Matrix. We don't know what they've changed yet."
Right. And that allows for like a portal or something to be able to go through. I think.
No, they changed something. They added a wall where a wall wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that was what they changed. Yeah, he was because they were on the run, and then he saw a cat come out and go Brer, and it shivered, and then it came out and went Brer and shivered again.
Got a memory like a steel trap.
I
I just remember the cat. But that
haven't
was to
seen that
me.
movie in like 20 years too.
That was a good movie to me. I didn't like the second one so much. I liked the first one. It was
Yeah.
really, really deep stuff, and some people just don't see it. And like the whole thing with the spoon bending. The guy was bending the spoon,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you do that? He goes, "There is no spoon,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of it. There is no physical life. It's all this cosmic soup, rearranged molecules that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's like I don't smoke pot anymore, but when I did, that's the kind of stuff you sit and think about. All these
Yeah,
weird things.
I suppose so. Yeah. The whole there is no spoon thing that always got me too. I was always like, yup.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, in their particular case, it of course was realizing that it's not even real. They're just inside a digital universe that
And that's kind of where we may
Yeah.
be. That we may not be physically here. It's just our imagination that we're physically here. So it's a consciousness belief form that there's things called molecules that arrange and create physical
Right.
bodies, and it's not even the case. It's just information creating an illusion. And I've had that vision too, unless that was a Star Trek thing where there's all these glass jars with brains in
Mhm.
them, and that's what life is. Just a
Yeah.
bunch of people thinking about shit.
Well, it's interesting. So if you were to take that to its extreme, that it goes down the rabbit hole quite far. There's this whole concept out there that's much like there is no spoon, where basically all life started from an original thought. So as soon as the original thought was had, so a lot of people would call that God, and the Bible would reinforce that by saying, in the beginning, um, you know,
There was the word.
there was the Word, and the Word is God. And then whenever there is a description about God, God is I am who am, right? And so that's the point, is that he just is, right? And so there was
I am that I am.
the original thought, right, actually created the entire rest of the universe, that nothing existed until it was thought of. And then as more things were thought of, the world began to flow outward from there. So literally more beings are created. We had thoughts. Oh, hey, look at that. I wonder what's in the sky. Ooh, there's stars in the sky. I wonder what those stars are made out of. I bet you those are made out of something like a fiery ball in the sky. And then it becomes a fiery ball in the sky. And so there really is it's a quantum experience.
So what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing?
Mm.
Like there is no fiery ball in the sky unless I decide that's what it is. No,
Well,
that's what it
you
is?
deciding whether there was a chicken or an egg that came first was what came first.
The rooster.
Well, your concept of it. It's kind of like an advanced Schrodinger's cat, where they're talking about, in Schrodinger's cat, you have the box, it's the box experience. It's the cat in the box, and then you have this like little cyanide capsule and this like mechanism that will like basically randomly set off this cyanide um, that can kill the cat. So basically, you're going to open up the cat, and the cat is dead. You're going to open it up and the cat is going to be alive. Or you're going to open it up and it's going to fall and it's going to go off right then, and then it'll kill you both. So, so like all three of those things are all true until you open it up and find out which reality you're in.
Right. It's kind of like I just lost my train of thought. Just like that. I had it and it was gone. Just took off.
You just weren't in that reality. That's what it was.
Well, that's kind of the thought. Is because there's some theory that everything exists everywhere all at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of data and information, and it's whatever you resonate with is what you see. Like the light spectrum, there's certain light that we don't see. We only see what we see.
a significant amount of light that we don't see.
So we're sitting in
we
this
see like a
space
little
of
fraction.
being able to vibrate at a certain frequency.
Mhm.
There's a lot of other frequency out there. So we're in this three-dimensional world.
Yeah.
So we can relate to it. And there's other things that are happening at this exact same time. So right now we could be inside of solid granite, but we're not vibrating at that frequency. So we're in this studio.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, the whole vibrating at that frequency. So there's this very fascinating experiment that's being done right now in, I want to say London. I can't remember the name of the university, but they're doing a study right now on ayahuasca and DMT in particular. And they're actually, it's the first study of its kind, because basically all the other studies want to figure out how or why DMT works and what it can be used for, right? Those are the major things that they're trying to utilize, where they're like, oh, this is fascinating. Let's take this and use it for something, some kind of psychological use to heal people or to help them with certain trauma. This study's not doing that at all. This study's going, we want to map the DMT experience, because whenever people are on DMT, they're having a somewhat unified experience depending on where they're at in the world and things like that. They're seeing a lot of the same entities. They're describing a lot of the same things. They're describing a lot of the same places.
Mhm.
All of these things are all very similar between what everybody's writing. People who've never talked will have conversations with beings that go the same as other people that they've never met. So it's quite fascinating. So they're actually trying to map the DMT realm, and they're actually mapping out the whole place, like as it exists. And so the theory is that they're having, because everybody was having a shared experience, as they're mapping it, they're actually finding that they can make a real map of it. So at this point, the theory is that it's just tapping us into a different dimensional frequency. We're just tapping into a different frequency that we weren't in before.
Deep stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
can
fascinating.
I can relate that. I mean, if your goal is to find out the psychological benefits of DMT, and then some other lab is doing a whole nother study, of course, they're going to get different information and come up
Right.
with a different conclusion. So now
Yeah.
you've got one product with multiple
Right.
conclusions.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the wave particle.
Yeah.
If you observe it, it's a particle. If you don't, it's a wave. I think that's the way it works, right?
Yes, it
It-
does. Yeah. So you have, it's the slit experiment. You have the three slits, and then you bombard it with photons, basically, and light, and then you look at the way that the evidence of the way that the light goes on the other side, and you can see it looks like a wavelength because of the way that it looks on the other end of those slits.
Right.
But if you observe the actual particle pattern by getting a powerful enough microscope, it stops behaving like a wave and begins to behave like a particle again.
Right.
So you'll see where all the particles are just hitting the slit.
Yeah. So it's the observer or the perception of the observer. Like, for example, this bottle of water, how fast is it moving?
36,000 miles per hour, based on how fast the entire planet is moving.
Okay, so you're just going by how fast the planet is turning or how fast the planet is going around the sun.
It really depends. I think.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because right here, it looks like
Yeah.
it's not moving at all.
Exactly.
And if you look at it from the perspective of the Earth spinning, it's turning that fast.
Yeah.
And if you look at it from the perspective of the Earth moving around the sun, it's that fast. And then, well, how fast is our solar system going through the Milky Way galaxy?
Right.
And how fast is the galaxy going through the universe?
Right. Which, of course, we have no concept of those. We have no idea.
But it seems like it's going faster and faster and faster. This is going 0. The Earth, it's going, was it 900 miles
Yeah.
a second? And then if it's going around the sun, how fast is that orbit? It's bizarre.
Right. Well, it's weird that they think so when they're observing the universe, and this is what you were alluding to. You're observing the universe, and you're observing them at different ages, and it seems like that
Different ages?
Yeah. So in other words, the further you basically our observation of things is
So
happening
that's interesting because
on a scale of time.
you're looking at it as time. I was looking at it as space.
Well, space and time are intrinsically connected,
Right.
but
we just
it's
got done
interesting.
doing
So
it,
if you're observing light coming off of a star that's further away, you're actually looking further back in time. So what they're
Right.
finding is as you're observing the newer things, they're actually moving faster away from us than the things that we're viewing that are further away, based on what the evidence is there, right? So that's why they're thinking that the universe is moving faster and faster and faster. But really, if you think about it, if everything really did start from a massive original expansion, right? Big Bang Theory, right? A massive original expansion on a scale of the universe. We're talking about the entire universe went bang and was created. An explosion that large would take way longer to complete than an explosion that was the size of a firecracker. It's the reason why if you use a rapid speed camera, high speed camera, and you observe an explosion of a little firecracker, it goes boom, and it happens extremely fast, right?
Right.
And you can measure that in frames. It just happens incredibly fast in comparison to, say, a nuclear bomb, because you can observe with your own eyes that the explosion is going and getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
So if you're talking about it on the scale of the universe, we may just still be experiencing the initial bang expansion before any contraction is even happening, because just the explosion was so large. Or there's another theory that says as we're observing things, it's actually creating more matter. So it's creating more things from our observation. And therefore, the universe has to be continually expanding, because if we're creating as we observe, it needs to make room and space for that creation.
Yeah. Are we done?
Weird thoughts, right?
Well, it is. It's interesting that we're talking about this, I guess I'll call it a dichotomy or a dualism.
Mm-hmm.
And you were looking at it from the point of view of time. I was looking at it from a point of space,
Right.
which is the same thing. So that's a little coincidence right there.
Yeah.
Kind of what we're talking about.
They're both considered to be the fourth dimensional space and time. And as one begins to warp, the other warps as well.
It's weird how these things are so fun to talk about, and then you get to a certain point, and it's kind of like, let's just agree.
Right?
Because we both get it. I mean,
Yeah.
we've dabbled in that kind of stuff.
Right. But we have an audience to talk for, so
Mm-hmm.
it's fun to
Yeah,
get
there's
to
some
rehash
people
things.
saying that's not true. That's not the way it works. And it's like,
hey, if you disagree and you don't think it's the way that it works, that's okay. You can totally send us a message. We will bring you on as a guest, and we'll have a better conversation, because we'll have somebody who will be sitting there going,
that's right.
I don't know about that.
It would be a debate, or what's the fine line between a debate and an argument, right? Or just a conversation.
How fun they are to watch, and how fun they are to be a part of.
Yeah.
Because if it turns into a heated argument, the only thing you can either do is laugh at the other person, because it becomes humorous at that point, or to get drawn into being frustrated. And I wouldn't be drawn.
Well, we're in the same boat there. It's kind of like whatever,
Unless somebody started talking about flat Earth, in which case I would get frustrated.
Would you?
Well, just the evidence is so obvious that's out there. I mean, and people do it over and over and over and over again. If we're on a flat planet, and you have a way of looking at the ecliptic, right? And you're 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 on this one point. Then you go across a large body of water that's still, like a giant lake, like Lake Superior, and you have a high-powered telescope, and you're looking through it, and you tell the helicopter to fly straight out, and they fly straight out, and then you tell them, okay, now land towards the ground. They won't hit the ground before they're gone out of your view. And people redo these experiments all the time in order to prove this, because there's so many people out there that are like, oh, this, no, it's not true.
So
It's
do you
like,
get frustrated then?
I only get frustrated because
So you do get frustrated.
unnamed people tell my children how the earth is flat, and then I have to unteach them the wrong information.
Oh, I see. So it's I see. So it's affecting someone else other than yourself.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's affecting my children while I'm trying to teach them about science, and then somebody tells them really bad bunk science that's out there.
I get it.
You know, I'm all for conspiracy theory. I love independent thought. I actually, I definitely believe a few conspiracies myself that are out there.
But
and my wife is a big conspiracy
it's
theorist in a lot of
irrelevant.
ways.
It's irrelevant whether it's true or not. It's that they are communicating this opinion to your offspring. It's kind of a getting out of you're out of bounds there.
Yes, and if they were to say, here's a bunch of evidence on why it's true, and then we could have a, you know, kind of like conversation on that kind of level, it would be fine. But the thing is that when somebody starts trying to convince my kid, right, that
Yeah, it's out of
something is
bounds.
true, right, and then it doesn't actually have any evidence behind it, and it's contrary to.
Well, even if it did have evidence behind it, it's none of their business teaching your kid that thing without your permission.
I would say that is a valid feeling a lot of people could have. I believe in independent thought, so in a lot of ways I don't mind. But when they're like between 0 and 10, that's a big deal, right? Because when you teach somebody something that young and they pick up something, they don't just drop it. Like, it's not dropped. It actually sticks in their head as something that is true. And if you're the first person to teach a kid this is an interesting phenomenon that was studied at like places like Stanford and stuff like that. If you were the first person to teach a kid something who is not their parent, right? They actually consider you to be an authority on the subject, whether or not you know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly, your opinion like massively matters, and whatever the belief is that you have now shared carries an inordinate amount of weight. It's much like in magic, right? I mean, if you were to do a sleight of hand, right, and you let people believe that it was magical, and you're just like, I'm not going to tell you how to do that. You're not taking away the mystery of it, right? Carries more weight in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
You tell them how you did it, now they're just like, oh yeah, it's just a trick.
Well, it's interesting because you're talking a little bit about logic versus emotion. So if they taught your child something, now that child believes it, concrete, it's more logical. And then you have an issue with that emotionally because it's my kid. I don't want you embedding truths into my child.
Well, I wouldn't say it's 100% that, because it's really that particular one irks me because there's been
Which
a
one?
few.
The flat Earth one?
The flat Earth one.
Okay.
That particular one irks me because it goes into this giant rabbit hole of like where people are like, oh yeah, well, you know, here's this and that, and then they tell your kids it, and they claim that they have a bunch of evidence, but then if you just use straight up basic rules. Like, okay, so if it's flat, I should be flat here, it should be flat there. We're on the same body of water, where we should be even. Then why is that person landing over there? Or how come I can't see it? Well, obviously the earth is curved. Even whenever you shoot a bullet long enough distance, the mathematics that are involved in that snipers have to learn includes the spin of the earth, the windage, and the curvature. They have to actually account for all of that in doing it. So it's like, so where I get bothered is the fact that they're not really presenting evidence, they're presenting opinion. It's not really evidence, it's opinion, and most of the time it's regurgitated information rather than actually
Right, which
stand
brings
up
up your
themselves.
exact point is somebody taught your child the truth, quote truth, it's not necessarily the truth, and now your child believes it. So that's where
Yeah.
they learned it. They learned it from somebody else that blurted out some bullshit, and now they're teaching bullshit to other people.
Yes.
I,
Yes. Yes.
I just called
I
the
would say
flat
so.
earthers bullshit. This is a little bit off that topic, but you had mentioned the bullet thing.
Yeah.
And this is a hard thing to comprehend, that if you shoot the bullet straight out,
Yeah.
perfectly parallel to the earth,
Mm-hmm.
that bullet that's traveling out there hundreds of feet away will fall to the earth at the same speed if you dropped another bullet from at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of amazing that this is going 3 feet, that's going thousands of feet, and they hit the ground at the same time.
Right.
How does that work?
Yeah, it's kind of weird the way that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bullet drop speed and all that kind of stuff is all it's
I got a deep one
fascinating.
for you. Stephen Wright used to say, you know, the comedian,
Yeah.
Stephen Wright? He used to say, if you're driving a car at the speed of light and you turn on your headlights, would they do anything?
That's interesting because if you're traveling at the speed of light
Um,
and you turn on your headlights, in theory it would, because the headlights are now stable. It's just everything else around
right.
them is moving at the speed
Yeah,
of light.
it's a force in motion tends to stay in motion.
Right.
So is there molecules in light, or are photons different? Do photons not have inertia?
I don't know. That's really interesting. That's really interesting because if you are traveling at the speed of light, it's much like if you're in the car and you're traveling in the car at the speed of light. You could easily reach around and grab anything that you want inside the car because relative to you, the car is still.
Right.
So relative to the car, the lights that are coming off of the car while the car is moving that fast, in theory, the light should be coming off that fast. However, in quantum physics, right, or I shouldn't say quantum physics, but in physics, they say that speed of light is a finite measurement. So they're saying that that's like literally the fastest that it can go based on the movement of the photons. But I don't know. I don't know if that. I mean, I don't know
Well, let's
how that would work.
say you're driving in a car, you're driving the speed of light, and you got a tennis ball.
Mhm.
You throw the tennis ball, it's going faster than the speed of light because you threw it across, down the aisle, right?
Right.
So could you do that same thing if the tennis ball was a photon?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I would think so. That's where I'm saying like I would think so. However, and this is where it's interesting. So as you approach the speed of light, it's supposed to be this like infinite barrier that you can't really cross. So if you throw it, is it really moving faster than what you threw it? Because really what happens is that time begins to slow down so you can move faster. So like for you, time is still moving the same, right? For the rest of the world, time is going like super fast. And when you reach back to wherever you launched from, right? So you get back and you haven't aged that much.
I got lost.
And everybody else is like dead and gone by that point. Like, so there's a couple of books like that actually have it. So, uh, stuff by Asimov uses that a lot. So anything time that you're going to do any type of like interstellar travel or anything like that, you have to approach the speed of light. But the closer that you get to the speed of light, the slower that time actually seems to go for you, right? But you, the observer, are still experiencing things exactly the same.
Yeah.
The people are observing that you are moving ridiculously quick, right? However, there reaches a point where if you are going close enough, or if you're going fast enough, I should say, where all of us collectively experiencing the time that we're experiencing could be dead and gone by the time that person arrives. And essentially, they have traveled through time because they have gone so fast. So if they were to throw a ball, would the ball go faster than the speed of light, or would time just adjust so that way the ball could be thrown? And as we've already discussed, since space and time are the same thing, like you're moving through space at a different speed. Yeah. See, that's actually a really confusing one. It's actually one that physicists would have a lot of fun with, I'm sure.
It is. It's one of these things. Like the meaning of life is to live it and just be instead of doing.
Right.
It's like I don't care if it's going faster than speed of light or not. Let's just ride. Doesn't
Right.
matter. It does. It's like asking the question why. You keep on asking the question, you eventually get to the point where it doesn't matter. Like people say, like the why question, and you ask it enough times. My mom had the answer, and her answer
Mhm.
was because I said so. That's why.
Yeah.
So mom would put her foot down.
Yep. I use that one too. My little girl does that to me all the time. She goes, "But why?" Then I give her an answer, and then she goes, "But why?"
Yeah, because it can go forever.
It just, yep.
I have a theory that if you answer that question 7 times, you come to the core, the answer of the thing. I think it just takes 7 times. Like, why are we here? Well, because we scheduled it. Why did we schedule it? Because we do it every week. Why do we do it every week? I'm not sure there. Why do we do it every week? So that people
because
know
we
that
enjoy
we're
it.
doing it every week. Yeah, then why do we want people to know?
Except for last week, because you had an anniversary.
Because I had an anniversary.
Yeah.
See, now I'm remembering.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way.
I had an anniversary, and
I don't know if she watches your shows.
I'm trying to remember what she don't. I'm trying to remember where we went. So I got to go back in time. So we got to go get that tennis ball and throw it behind us. Wonder if that would work. Instead of turning your headlights on,
go backwards.
Instead of turning your headlights on, turn them off. Would that do anything? If your headlights are on and your car's going the speed of light and you turn them off, would they go off? I better check what time it is.
Even if they did,
oh my God, it's only 5:39. We got a lot of time.
Hey, could you imagine that? Like, you turn the lights off, and then you're going the same speed as the lights, almost, right? So at least because in theory, you can't go as fast as the speed of light. The closer you get, the more energy it takes to get there. So in theory, you go pretty darn close to the speed of light, but not really the speed of light. So if the photons are going and you had your lights on and you turn them off, you're like going so fast that like you can still see the light for a while until it disperses. That'd be weird.
Deep stuff, buddy.
That'd be like a laser experiment, man. And we have these like ultrasonic planes that are out there and everything else. Just mount a laser to one, and I mean they have laser mounted weapons. So you just mount a laser to one, and then you have to they can fire at a little spot, and they can see how fast the photons are going, and then have it go like subsonic speeds, and then fire at that same spot and see if it changed the speed of the photons at all. And then, of course, you'd have to have it mounted, what you were testing the speed off of. You'd have to have it mounted to the device too, because like you want to see if, or have you fly through the hole. I don't know. That'd even be a weird experiment
You got
to
me
set up.
going now.
Like, where are you going to have to actually measure the actual correct particles from? Because like, if we're not on that and you're approaching the speed of light and then you're shooting off something that's light, right? Is it gonna hit
Stop
the
it.
thing that's you're
Stop.
targeting before you do?
Stop. I think you just put it in an envelope and send it back to yourself through the United States Postal Service.
Now you got my brain spinning. I'm like, oh my God, how would you even set up that experiment? That would be really, that's a funky thought experiment there.
Well, there gets to be stuff like that, like that you can't comprehend, because we
Yeah.
are in this limited spectrum of vibration, and we can't comprehend stuff outside of it. Like even just the idea of a fourth dimension, then a fifth dimension, and this, what is the other dimensions?
No, they keep going.
It starts.
Theoretically, there's an infinite number of dimensions, but
a dimension initially in a three-dimensional world is like height, width, and length, right?
yeah.
So it's just a three-dimensional world. And what's the next dimension?
Space and time. The fourth dimension is space and time.
But space and time are still in this physical world.
We're
Space is just like a 6 by 6 by 6 cube.
Space and time doesn't exist here. It exists in a fourth dimension, and we're actually in the third dimension. We're only seeing the effects of space and time on this dimensional plane.
I don't understand. And you can't explain it to me.
So, actually, I can. So you see, this is one dimension, right? If all you have is this flat surface, that's two dimensional. If all you have is this little crack, this line, right? If it's just that line, that would be the one dimensional, right? So this is two dimensional. This is all three dimensional. You see my shadow, right? From the light coming off of it, you can see that shadow. That shadow that you're seeing right there is two-dimensional. So my 3D object is having an effect in the 2D world. If you're a two-dimensional object or a two-dimensional being, right, and you go through that shadow, you're like, oh, what the fuck is this, right? This is really interesting. Like, what's going on here? How come the space in front of me is darker than the space behind me? Because you have no concept of what is three-dimensional, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't have a concept of being able to say, oh, there's something in the sky there and blah, blah, blah. Well, we see the effects of space and time on us. But it's all relative to us, right? So we see the effects of space and time much like you see the effect of a shadow on the two-dimensional realm. So space and time doesn't exist in the three dimensions that we're in. It exists outside of that, and all we see is the shadow or the effects that it has.
Right, on this one. Like you got the three dimensions, you got a 6 inch by 6 inch by 6 inch cube.
Yeah.
So space would be the space between the 6 inches.
Yeah.
6 inches of space.
And the time would be how long it takes you
to travel for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So then you think, what's the fifth dimension?
That's where it gets a little bit confusing. So with the fourth dimension, in theory, if we were fourth dimensional beings, we would be more like quantum type things, right? So if you look at quanta, when you're experiencing, like, for example, molecules, right? You're looking at molecules and then you're looking at the electrons. We used to think that the electrons orbited around the nucleus, right? So the nucleus is made up of protons and neutrons. Then you have the electrons that go around it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not what we found. They actually just randomly appear and disappear around the atom. We don't even know if it's the same electron. We just know it's electrons
So how
randomly
do you
appearing
think
and
we
disappearing.
figured out that it spins around?
Well, that was a theory that we had based off of the way the rest of the world works,
The solar
is that it
system.
spins around. But when we actually observe it, it has the right number of electrons at any given moment. So we are correct about that. But whenever we observe it, they literally disappear and reappear at other
Which
locations
might be what's
simultaneously.
happening to the planets around the sun. They're not really rotating around the sun. They're appearing and disappearing.
It's just an observation. Yeah. It could totally just be an observational thing though.
That's interesting. So we're at our solar system, and Mars needs to leave for a little while to a different solar system, and then it comes back, and we
We
think that it
wouldn't
traveled.
we wouldn't even necessarily notice.
Right. That's what we don't. That's what we don't notice.
Yeah.
Because Mars is leaving and coming back, leaving and coming back, leaving and coming back, and we think it's spinning around, but it's just leaving and coming back.
So in theory, if we were fourth dimensional beings, time and space would be traversable, much like three-dimensional space. So rather than going to Mars and having to get on a rocket and go to Mars and everything else, literally you would just be able to fold space and time, and you would just go whoop, and take a step to the side and you'd be on Mars, and then everything would just right itself there because there would be no distance between here and there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. That Mars isn't really coming and going, or maybe it is. Maybe it's going to all the infinite different universes all at the same time.
Yeah.
Millions of different universes.
Yeah, every time it dips behind the sun, every time we don't get to see it, every time that there is a solar Mars eclipse, and it
Or
dips behind the
even
sun, it's
even
gone
while you're
out of this
observing it,
universe.
even while you're observing it, just like the movies, it's frame by frame by frame by frame by frame.
Yep.
So it's all happening. Different universe, different universe, different universe, different universe coming back,
Right.
vibrating at that three-dimensional vibration.
It just happens to be vibrating at this
So you got to get into the
all the
like
time.
the eighth dimension, and then you go, holy shit, I'm everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
I ran out of thought. We just tapped all my brain cells.
Well, so
They're
in
all
in
done.
theory, fifth dimensional does get us to that point because fifth dimensional, so fourth dimensional being able to move through space and time in a whole different way, right? Fifth dimensional, it's supposed to have something to do with energy. I don't quite fully understand it, like because I the stuff that I have read on there that is not highly mathematical doesn't always agree. So it's not one of those ones that I've been able to read that's actually cut and dry.
Here's another one that just came in. This one just in. You've maybe heard of it, but I was listening to a guy on YouTube, and he was talking about how like one times something, like one times one is still one.
Yep.
It didn't go anywhere.
Right.
So like one kind of doesn't have any value when you add stuff up because it doesn't multiply. Whereas two does, and three does, and four does, and five does, but one doesn't. So it's kind of irrelevant.
Well, it's only because of the mathematical formula that we've set out. I mean, because whenever you do a times, it means whatever that base pair is, or the base number. It's it's that many times that number. So anything times one is just whatever that thing already is because you only have your original base.
Yeah, so it's sort of insignificant. No wonder one is the loneliest number.
It's still needed in math though. It's actually very important. So I wouldn't call it irrelevant. But there was an interesting thing I was hearing from somebody though where they were like, is anything times zero really zero? And they were like, it was very weird. I can't even remember how they were talking about it. Who was it? it was on some talk show I was listening to. Either way, it was, to me, I was like, okay, that's just ridiculous because math is a pretty cut and dry language. It really is. It's a very cut and dry language. We may find that the language is incomplete, but it's still the language that we use, right? So 1 times 1 has very significant rules. And so one person can say, oh, those rules don't make any sense because of XYZ, but it's still the rules. So 1 times 1, it wouldn't make it irrelevant just because there's a 1 involved. It it's relevant still because it follows the rules and allows you to be able to do certain things if you follow those rules. But it's just another language. I mean,
Well, it's just kind of weird that
is it meters or inches? It's just another language.
2 times 2 is something, but 1 times 1 it's not doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like what's 1 times 0?
Well, that'd be 0
How come it's not 1?
because you're
0 times 1.
because you're taking 1 0 times.
What's 0 times 1?
Yeah. So again, you're taking 0 1 time. So that's still 0 because you're taking 0 1 time. So I will take 0 1 time.
I was never really good at math. I knew the calculators were coming.
That's the whole reason why whenever I was watching the thing about that math though, where this guy was talking about some stuff with math, I'm like, oh, it doesn't really make sense. Like we're doing it wrong because 1 has to have a value. So 1 times 1 can't just be 1. Well, it is if you think about it logically. Because if you have 1 times 2, then literally you're going, okay, I have 1 once, I have 1 twice. That makes 2. Like, you can physically do it, and it totally makes sense. But if I say I have 0 1 time, and let's say that, we'll represent 0 by the inside of this since it has nothing in there. I'll take 0 1 time. Okay, here you go. Okay, I'll take 0 twice. Okay, there you go. How many water bottles do you have? Well, none. You just have bottles because you took 0 twice and you have no
I thought we
water.
were taking the stuff inside of here, which is nothing.
Right, that's what I mean.
So 2 times 0 is nothing.
So if this is no longer a water bottle. It doesn't have any water in it. So that's what I'm saying. So if you take this is basically 0 times 2 right here. You have 2 of something, but it's not water bottles. Now, if you need to have water bottles and you're trying to measure the water, right? This would be a 0 times 2 equation because you have 0 amounts of the water in
You
here.
lost me. I'm lost now.
That's okay. And it seems to be that kind of Monday.
Well, this is my day always. I'm always lost when I talk about numbers.
Oh, come on. There's got to be a use for numbers quite often in doing stage magic.
There are some people that do mathematical types of things. The magic square.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely like with a deck of cards. There's
Mhm.
13 numbers, the ace, 2, and the queen,
Sure.
all that stuff. And do you know that deck of cards has a lot to do with like the 4 seasons and what else? There's a whole bunch of stuff with
Mhm.
the deck of cards that means something.
Yeah.
52 weeks in a year, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, so I don't give away any magic tricks that somebody might not know. I'll just say the mirror box. And if you have a mirror
Now they
box,
know there's a mirror in the box. You did it already.
But it's a mirror if it's a mirror box, but they don't know what tricks use the mirror box. I mean, and you can do a lot of tricks without the mirror box, and that was a big advancement. So that's what I'm saying. Like mirror box, right? So if you have a mirror box, that's mathematical because you have to have the mirror at just the right precise angle.
Yeah, is that math or is it geometry
The math
or
math
or
is geometry.
trigonometry?
Well, it would be a geometry, but it's still
So
math.
math is the umbrella, and then there's all these little things,
Hmm.
algebra and
Yep.
geometric and angles and
Physics, geometry, trigonometry. It's all applied mathematics.
have you heard about the $1 million mystery?
No,
I'm
maybe.
not going to talk about it on here, but when this is done, I'll share it with you. And it's a fascinating illusion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, fun. I would definitely love to see that. I love
I can't
illusions.
show it to you.
Yeah, you
It's
should see.
5:55.
Yeah. Yeah, I think next time we do this, you should have a simple illusion or something you can do for the people on that side of the camera. I'll sit over there too, so that way
I can do it right now.
you can
Ready?
trick me too.
Watch the little ring on my finger from
Hmm.
here. Ready? There, I did it in front of them.
Nice.
So how should we sign this off? We got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Well, if you liked watching this, then please, by all means, follow us next week. Click the little follow and subscribe. And yeah, please share this with anybody else who hasn't seen it before.
Yeah, do that.
Yep. And if you didn't like it, you're probably not here anymore. So it doesn't matter because we're talking to ourselves.
Or if you kind of liked it and you hung on because you thought we're going to maybe say something interesting, you can use that little thing that speeds it up. So you can 2 times this, and then we can do a 1-hour show in 30 minutes.
Right.
How
The
does
other
that
thing you
work?
can do is you can participate. We actually have been asking for people to participate, and we haven't really got any people to bite yet. So if you have
No,
any
we have.
questions,
We did get somebody.
oh, that's true. We did. We
Yeah.
got like the one question.
There was a friend of yours that was on and watched the whole thing live.
Yeah, and they called us afterwards. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
got a
she
phone
called
call.
afterwards.
Go ahead, call her. You on the air.
Yeah, yeah. Next time you can call while we're on there. I'll put you on speaker. Or, the other thing to do is you could just message us if you have questions. I mean, we're both experts at our own things. I happen to be an expert in psychedelics and microdosing and things like that. And he happens to be an expert
In his own
in
mind.
many different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got entrepreneurial ADD.
Yep. Yeah, I totally
So-
relate.
Okay, I'm going to sign this one off. And what was that? We're on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook right now, I believe. And had some challenges with all that stuff because there's certain rules with all these different platforms. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's good to just go on one, but good luck finding it. So that's all we've got. Peace, love, and happiness. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be good, be kind, be nice. Did I say be nice? Be nice. See ya. Woo.